This is a little different Sunday morning, not having our typical expositional preaching, but we're in a vision casting Sunday, looking forward to what God is calling us to do as a church family. And First Baptist Allen has a great history, but we also want to make sure that we embrace the future that God has for us as a church family, and we don't want to allow fear to dominate our thinking about the future. So please be assured that we will continue to value the things that we have valued. We will still believe the things that we have believed. We will shore up some areas of weakness, and we will lean in to some places of strength and pass things on as well to the next generation. I normally would not do a vision casting sermon so soon after becoming the senior pastor of a church, but I have only been here 3 months, but in that time I just sense that the church is eagerly awaiting for direction, and now is the time. I don't have all of the details. There are some bids and things that we're still waiting to come in, and I had originally planned to do this in the fall after we had a few more things together, but I do believe God has given enough direction where we can at least begin the vision casting process today. What I see is that God is absolutely on the move at First Baptist Church Allen, and the most important thing is that we embrace His vision and that we remain in step with Him. This is His church. Jesus bought us with His blood, and the leading of His Spirit is essential. And so the first question to be answered is not what is my vision as the new pastor, but what is God's vision, what is Jesus' vision for His body that is known here as First Baptist Church of Allen. So I have no interest, you've probably gotten to know this about me in the first few months, but I have no interest in playing church. I have no interest in appeasing people, and I have no interest in keeping up with the church down the street. I want to hear God's voice for our body and then be obedient to what He has called us to do in our area, in the places that it looks like to serve Him. Jesus commanded us to go and make disciples. So when we talk about a vision for a church, this is the primary vision. Jesus, in a sense, has already given the vision, and it's to go and make disciples. And we see that in Matthew 28, 18 through 20. So any specific vision that is cast for a specific body at a specific time must be in line with Christ's primary overall vision, mission, commission, and even command for His church. So I've titled today's sermon, Legacy 2030, and that's the title of the vision, Legacy 2030. And in some ways, you'll see we're already working towards this vision now, but we'll really dig into it over the next 4 years. And then I believe what God's leading us to do is as we dig into it over the next 4 years and we track it and we keep metrics, that as we begin 2030, basically right at the, maybe even January at the beginning of the year, Lord willing, then we'll be able to celebrate. That will be our time to celebrate as we go into the new year what God has done. In fact, I've completely written out the sermon today. Typically, I preach with next to no notes at all, but I've written out and I've completely manuscripted this sermon because I want to take this and make sure it's in its final form, send it to all my staff, and we will reference this over the next 4 years to make sure that we stay on track with where I believe God is leading us. So over the next 4 years, I do think there are some things that we can track and have metrics on and share and rejoice along the way, not just wait until 2030, but we'll be rejoicing along the way as we see God move. And there's 3 primary areas we're going to look at this morning where I believe this will take place. The first area is in missions. First area is missions. In the book of Acts, as the resurrected Jesus appeared to His disciples and was about to ascend to heaven, where He now sits at the right hand of the Father, He gave them this command, this commission, that we see in Acts 1:8. It reads, "But you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you. And you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." So this is Jesus' mission, again, his commission, his command to the church. And we are to be his witnesses locally and unto the uttermost parts of the earth. And in my time here already, I would say that wonderfully, that is a part of the DNA of First Baptist Church of Allen. That is what you have been doing. Currently, we have local mission churches. We have a food pantry. We have a vibrant ESL ministry. We have a wonderful preschool that is also an outreach called Discovery Days. We have so much more that God is doing and using you right here, the body of Christ, to reach your community. We also have been very active in international missions and in things like disaster relief. And so what I believe, the first part of the vision is, I believe that we need to recognize that this is a significant strength. It has been a significant strength. It has a history here at our church. And what I want to do is to make sure that that is passed on, to make sure that the next generations have that vision, that the next generations have that passion for reaching our community and reaching our world for Christ. You know, especially when it comes to international trips, I've seen how they bring about just a spiritual maturity in people that I think mostly does not come any other way. And I think my opinion is much of the heart for people that I have seen and the loving church that First Baptist Allen is, a lot of that flows out of those of you that have been serving, whether it is in our food pantry or international mission trips, or you're serving in our special friends ministry, but you're serving and God has done a work in your heart through that service, and that is very much a part of the DNA of our church. And so what I'm currently doing is working on a goal for both our local outreach and our international mission trips, where we can track that over the next 4 years. And then we can see this is how God is using us to make him known in new ways, and also how we're bringing the next generations into that process. And so we're going to have more details about that foreign mission strategy. That's what I've been working on and what I plan to do this fall. And if there's ways that we can even partner with our local mission churches in that. And we're working on some local outreaches. But for international missions in particular, I want to see us develop a strategy where we can see God work over a course of several years in one specific area, that maybe we have an international mission board missionary, a couple, or there's a program that is going on in another country where we can come and partner with them, work with them for 4 years and see that ministry evolve and develop. Now, that doesn't mean we wouldn't do trips in other places. I think we can have an impact in all kinds of places. But I think there's also something very rewarding about really dialing in to a specific international ministry and seeing that advance and seeing God's work there and being able to report that and to see that in our church family. But for our community, I think there are times when we invite people here, like Vacation Bible School, but there are also times where we need to go where the people are. And so I call this a y'all come and we go strategy for local outreach. And I think both are needed, both are important. And I also like the love where you live mentality that has been developed here. And I want to keep that before us. I'm currently exploring some ways to help mobilize the church to do local outreach and even partner with some of the local school districts and partnering with our Texans on missions. And so what we want to do is to think outside the box and look for ways to respond to needs in our community like we have with the ESL program or the food pantry. So the first part of the vision is to simply lean into what I believe is a strength of our church to chart a measurable, trackable course over the next 4 years where we can see something progress both locally and internationally, and something that we can be very purposeful in bringing the next generation into that strategy and see that heart for outreach, see that heart for missions that's been so much a part of this church passed on to that next generation. And so this will answer the question of how do we advance both our local and foreign mission strategy, and how do we engage young adults in that process. The second part of the vision, and keeping with an M theme, is media. And our worship center, media specifically, our audio and video, or what you call AV, has not been significantly updated since this building was built 25 years ago. We recently upgraded the stage lighting, and it looks great, but there are still a lot of things to be done just right here in this room to simply be a good steward of the facilities that God has blessed us with. The staff have done a wonderful job. I cannot say enough good things about our staff in taking care of the church facilities and ministries, especially over the last 5 years, dealing with COVID, and then Chad's sickness, a minister of music retiring, an interim pastor. That is a lot to deal with. And the staff have done an amazing job with that. But in the midst of all of that transition and things just trying to be covered, one thing that hasn't been addressed is updating the audiovisual equipment. And I'd say that's probably pretty normal for that to get behind in the midst of all the other things that were going on. And so right now we've come to a point where we're behind enough that we have equipment that is beginning to fail. And a lot of the cabling that we have that was run 25 years ago is outdated and wouldn't even match up with the new equipment that we want to install. And so what that means is we need to completely overhaul the audio and visual, the media, the sound system in our worship center and move that into 2025. New speakers, possibly LCD screens to replace the projectors and the projector screens, renovating the stage here. The carpet is very frayed, a new soundboard, new cameras, new streaming equipment, basically all of it, a major renovation of our audio, video, and our stage. Because what we want to do is to make sure what we're doing in person, but also what we're putting out on the web, is putting our best foot forward. Don't you want to do that? We want to do what we do with excellence. And we have the right people, we just need to get them the right equipment. And so we're also looking at renovating the stage, the backdrop behind me. The way this stage was originally built, the choir loft is very far back. It kind of disconnects them from everybody. And so what I'd like to do is just renovate this whole stage, move it to where the choir is closer. There's plenty of room for the choir, band, frontline singers, and take down this pallet wall, maybe put Austin stone on that back wall, leave the stained glass, of course, but just give it an updated and a much cleaner look. And you know what? When you look at doing stuff like this, it's a lot more expensive than you would first believe. You know, I got to tell you, I was shocked when we started getting some first bids back. I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those deals, okay? Because one of the things is we need to run entirely new cables just kind of everywhere. We'd also like to move the sound booth so it's not blocking the seats behind it. We can have more cameras that aren't in the way. So there's a lot to be done, but I think there's a big payoff in the long run. But just to give you an idea and prepare for the big gasp, just for the audio video overhaul, the bids we've gotten in so far are over $800,000. So yes, welcome to 2025. So we're easily talking over $1 million for the renovations in here, but also that's renovating a space that hasn't been touched since it was built. And so that's really not unreasonable. I know that's a lot, but what we're doing is due diligence to make sure we get the best system in the best place for the future of our church for the best price. And one of the things you'll notice when we have a new sound system, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done up here where you can't see with the speakers, but one of the things you'll find when we have a new sound system is how much clearer it will be and how much more evenly the sound will be dispersed. We're used to it. You don't realize how bad the sound quality is in here right now because you've just gotten used to it. And for some of you that find elements of the music jarring, like maybe at times the drums or things feel jarring to you, that's actually because of weaknesses, deficiencies in our current system. And if we have a better system with better speakers, we can evenly disperse the sound in a way that will make a very significant difference in sound quality all across our worship center. We also need to work on our online presence and make sure that we're filming in the best quality available and make sure that we're mixing the sound the best way possible. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because whatever we do in the Lord's name and for his service, man, it should be our absolute best, right? There shouldn't be an area in our body where we go, well, we're just going to let that kind of be a low bar. No, we shouldn't do that. And that includes our in-house audio, video, and media equipment. And in my short 3 months here, it's already evident to me that we have a church that wants to bring God our best. I don't doubt that at all. And again, we have a great staff and volunteers, and now we need to get them the correct equipment to work with. When I think of that, Ecclesiastes 9:10 reads, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no work or device or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going." And Colossians 3:23 reads, "And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men." I believe this also goes with our desire to reach young adults and young families. This younger generation has grown up in a digital age, and we need to present ourselves well in that arena. And so we'll also put a plan in place for the future to continuously update equipment so that we could avoid such an extensive renovation in the future. And so I realize the church just paid off its debt last year, and I'd rather not carry another note. And so we may do a capital campaign in the near future for some focused giving. But for now, right now, we've added a drop-down bar on our online giving, and it says Legacy 2030. And so you can begin giving to that now. And here's just a testimony towards that I want to give you, and I think this will really encourage you. Because what I am doing a vision casting sermon 3 months into a church is kind of insane, really. I have a lot of preacher boys out there, and I would never advise them to do what I'm doing right now. Because you need to get to a church, you need to learn that church, and it takes time to do that. But I also want us to be in step with God, and I just believe this is where God's moving. I don't want to get ahead of him, but I sure don't want to fall behind of him. And so God is at work, the church is ready. We're going to move forward because that is what God is doing. But as a testimony to that, I had planned to ask you today if some of you would be willing to maybe give a special gift to kickstart the money that's needed for this project. But before I could, this past week, I had 2 different people approach me about some special giving that they normally wouldn't have, but they had available, and they wanted to know if I had anything specific that they could give this special giving towards. And just those 2 gifts, unsolicited, already total $30,000. Then also, it gets better, then also this past week, the stewardship committee, and looking in some excesses that we have that have been transferred into some different funds, decided in light of this vision to move $250,000 over from our board-directed building fund to the Legacy 2030 vision line. Therefore, between the money moved by the stewardship committee and the 2 personal gifts, we're already off to a $280,000 start. Now you can applaud. There you go. And again, that was without me even really telling people what I believe the extensive work that we were needing to do would be. God has just already been moving in the hearts of people that this is what we need to do. So we're currently getting bids from multiple vendors, and we'll include the Buildings and Land Committee. We're going to do it the right way. Steve Wade, our facilities manager, and the Stewardship Committee. And they will be very involved, and we will communicate with you as we go. But I still want to ask if there might be some of you that God would move in your heart to continue the momentum with a substantial gift. I think there are times people are just waiting to give until they have a target. Maybe God is giving some of you a prompt in your heart to give a $10,000 or a $50,000 gift, or even larger, towards the worship center renovation. And I believe that would just continue to confirm what God is doing and just be a great momentum builder. I would love to report, each week about how that fund is just growing and growing. But whatever God may lead any of you to do, to begin to give, whether it's $5 or $500 or $5,000, it's going to take all of us together as a church to do this. Lastly, the third M, in keeping with good preacher alliteration, is ministries. Ministries. So we did missions and media, and now ministries. This is the third and final thing. We're seeing some wonderful things that are already happening in our day-to-day ministries at our church. We had an excellent men's event with 115 men in attendance. We had a ladies' event with over 89 ladies in attendance, and both were really encouraging to everyone that attended. We also had what I thought was just a remarkable summer of ministry. God used Vacation Bible School, day camps that we had, play dates with our preschool ministry, mission trips, all kinds of connections were made. People gave their life to Christ. Some surrendered to ministry. I mean, it was an absolutely fruitful summer. And so coming off of that fruitful summer, we've also had people joining our church on almost a weekly basis. I should have double checked. If not weekly, very close to a weekly basis. We've had people joining our church, and we've seen the baptisms staying pretty full, pretty regularly. We've been able to see baptisms. We had a bunch of them just recently. So all of that to say, God's on the move at First Baptist Church of Allen. God is at work in our ministries. So how do we move forward with Him in that? What does that look like in the future? And going back to Jesus' vision of going and making disciples, how does all that go together? And I have a discipleship ministry that I want to get together with Jimmy on, and that's a whole other thing that we haven't even explored yet. But at this point, I do not believe God's leading us to hire a discipleship minister at this time, but I think there's restructuring that can happen within our current staff that will allow Jimmy to have more of a focus on the area of discipleship and move that forward. And so for that reason, I'm not planning to make a discipleship hire at this point, but I really want to focus on praying about the music minister position and give Jimmy an opportunity and allow me to give him the discipleship things that I have as well, and see how we can advance the discipleship part with who we have already. But in regards to the music, I have worked my contacts. I talked to the people I know that I thought were my friends that would come here. And we even had a candidate come a few weeks ago. But we just haven't had confirmation of God's leading towards the people we've looked at. And so I've also, just so you know, I've been intentionally looking at hires that would add more racial diversity to our staff, because I want what's on the stage to represent our church body and our community as well. But I believe God has us in a time of waiting and praying on this. And you know what? I know for a church that's been waiting on a lot of things, you don't want to wait anymore. But you know what? As we've said before, pretty much all of life is waiting on God. We're always waiting on Him for something, right? Or at least we should be. And so we want God's person at God's time. More important than discussions about style and all of that, I have become more and more convinced, is that we need the right person at the right time. And what I want to ask you to do is to join me in praying, and I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute, about who God is leading here to be our next music minister as we continue to optimize our current staff and move forward in our discipleship ministry. So further, in regards to a vision for ministries, the greatest need that we have in addressing a strength, we address a strength with our missions, but in addressing a weakness would be with our young adults and younger singles, those who have graduated high school and those who are getting a little older but are not yet married. As of right now, we do not have a staff member whose focus is on young adults and young singles. And bottom line, that has to change. I do believe that if we could get a music minister hired, that we have a current staff member that could take over and focus on a young adult ministry and do wonderful with it. But again, all of that is in God's timing. So that being said, I see us continuing to do a lot of what we're doing already in the areas of preschool, children, youth, married couples, older singles, special friends, and senior adults. But we must put some energy, some focus, and some finances into our young adult and younger singles ministry. We currently have a BFG for them, and we're talking about how to expand that ministry and give the young adults some places where they take ownership and other ministries of the church and have a place to serve. I want to see us do a retreat and continue building momentum in that ministry. I've also begun conversations with Dr. Barry Kramer, the president of Criswell College, about getting a residency program going here where we can have students who are called to ministry, serving and participating in our church and giving them a place to grow right here. I think that would be a great momentum builder. But again, we want God's timing, and I really need a staff member that I can focus on this ministry. And my heart behind all of this, and I think your heart as well, is summarized in Philippians 2, 1 through 4. It says, "Therefore, if there is any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others." And my heart is that I want to make sure that every group and every life stage in our church is loved and appreciated and has their place to belong. This is a wonderful multi-generational church that loves Jesus. And so let's make sure that we're bringing the next generation along and continuing that great legacy. Lastly, and I will be wrapping up soon, on Wednesday nights, I'm very excited about this, beginning August 20th, we will start a weekly time of prayer and praise called Refresh. Refresh will be a 50-minute time to pause in the middle of the week and pray. We'll meet right here in the worship center from 6:30 to 7:20, and I will lead most of them, and Landon will lead the music. And Refresh will be a time where you'll come in, there'll be prayer requests scrolling on the screen, so you can come in, sit down, begin to pray. We'll also have a place for you to drop off prayer requests as you come in, or pick up prayer requests, physical ones, and pray for. And we'll have a very short time of acoustic music and a time of a brief devotional, and then we'll go into a time of guided prayer. We're also going to kind of have the lights turned down around the edges, try to focus people towards coming more towards the middle and being here together in the middle. And we'll change the format from time to time, but that'll be a basic way of doing it. And it's a time of corporate prayer, a time to learn how to pray, a time to persist in prayer, a time to be a house of prayer. I've asked our young adults to take some ownership in this service, but it is open. Let me be very clear. It's open for all. Also, let me be clear, this will not take the place of anything we have going on in our Wednesday night schedule. Children and youth ministries and other Bible studies will continue. But for those who would like to come, again, we'll gather right here from 6:30. We plan to be done by 7:20, and we will pray. Somewhere along the line, this is my heart behind that, most churches have lost a sense of corporate prayer. We spend a lot of time fellowshipping, in Bible studies, in music, which is good, but the church in general has lost a sense of corporate prayer, and I believe that was a large part of the secret sauce of the early church. And we've just lost it. Too many times prayer meetings are filled with the devotional, music, 30 minutes of prayer requests, and 5 minutes of prayer. Something's wrong. And we need to get back to learning how to pray, to persist in prayer, and to pray together. I have a whole sermon on this topic, but I believe years ago, as a result of the church growth movement, many churches moved away from spiritual disciplines and began counting heads in the seats as the measure of success, and then entertainment began to drive the public worship services, and churches moved away from prayer. I want us to grow, and I want more and more people serving, and I want us to get back to running 2 services. But mostly, I want us to grow in Jesus Christ. Disciples make disciples. And for that, we must pray. We must pray for our community. We must pray for one another. We must pray for God's person to lead our music ministry. We must pray for the finances to renovate our worship center. We must pray for our family and loved ones. We must pray for our nation. We must pray. I've run out of time, and I have many sermons on the importance of prayer, but hopefully you know why this is important for a church. If you're uncomfortable with praying, this is also for you. Come, grow, experience God's presence, be refreshed in Him. As I bring this message to a close, Legacy 2030 is about the 3 M's of missions, leaning into our strength, passing that on to the next generation. Media, being good stewards of our facilities, also embracing the next generation with excellence in media. And ministries, doing what we're doing, but also shoring up those areas that are weak. And again, bringing along the next generation to carry the mantle and forge a great lasting legacy for First Baptist Church of Allen. We can do a lot in missions and in ministries with our current budget, but we need you to give generously so we can put our best foot forward and honor the Lord in the areas of our media and facilities. Again, we've added that drop-down option that says Legacy 2030. You can begin to give today. So you know what? I'm excited. I hope that you are. Let's get excited about what God is doing. We'll have more details to come, but let's persist in prayer. Let's continue to love one another. Let's continue to give. Let's continue to share. Let's continue to serve. And let's see just what God has in store for us as a church family. And if you've not put your membership here at First Baptist Allen, we would love to have you. So come and visit with us in the Connection Center after the service. If you have a decision or a commitment that God is calling you to make, don't wait. If you need prayer, let us pray for you. But lastly, if you do not know Jesus Christ, please allow us to introduce you to Him. Jesus is the Lord of the universe who died for your sins. He rose again from the grave. He ascended to heaven where He sits at the right hand of the Father, and He will return one day as the judge of the living and the dead. Until that day, we want to tell everyone we can about the salvation that exists in Jesus Christ. That is why we do all of this. And so will you come and allow us to tell you more about the Jesus we love?